Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Roy Howitt. I'm the UK and Irish Sales Manager at Medland, Spain, and I'd like to welcome you this evening to the fifth in our series of webinars, where we're going to be looking at the property purchasing process, what's going on with COVID in Spain, and also the relocation process with my guests this evening, who I'll talk to in a second, Sun Lawyers.
Okay.
Just a couple of bits of housekeeping before I start. The first thing is that during the presentation itself, you will see either on the top or the bottom of your screen a Q&A section. You can ask questions during the presentation. We will try to answer all of those questions in the time permitted. However, if we don't get to your question, please don't worry. We record all of the questions and we will come back to you after the event with any other questions that aren't answered during the presentation. Also, at the end of the presentation, you'll receive a short Q&A or short questionnaire form, should I say. We ask, please, if you can just take 10 minutes or so and fill that in for us and give us feedback on these events. As I said before, this is number 5 in the series. It's been particularly well subscribed. So we hope you enjoy what we're doing today. And as I say, we will run today for around about an hour. So let's start and have a chat with my two guests who've given up their evenings this morning. Both don't live a million miles away from me. First of all, it's going on to Jose Maria Lomax. I've lost it then for a minute, mate. It's been one of those days. Who is the CEO of a very well-known local lawyers called Sun Lawyers, who I understand is congratulating tonight. Just had some form of award or something presented to you, Jose Maria.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very pleased because we've obviously been given the award of the best expat law firm in Spain. So I'm more than obviously pleased to, have a glass of champagne with any of you if you come over to Spain and obviously enjoy an award.
But you've been around a while as a lawyer, haven't you? In actual fact, I know that over 30 years now, according to the statute.
Yes. Well, Sun Lawyers is a established law firm that my dad and my mum established. As I said, we've been more than 30 years in this area, in the Costa Blanca. We've got nowadays 6 offices. We're open our 7th office in March, quite near where we are. And obviously we've been dealing with many clients, international clients from all parts of the world, and obviously offering our services, trying our best to give the best service. And as you can see, I'm very more than pleased tonight to obviously welcome this award to our team.
Yeah, well done. The other thing I would say to you is, for anybody on this webinar, that the important point to make here is that this is one of the companies that we use and collaborate with. Even if you're not buying a property from Medland, you can still use their services, as with the mortgage companies we've spoken to and the insurance companies and a variety of other people. So please don't think that because they're joining us today on this webinar that you can't use their services. You might perhaps be looking at a second hand as opposed to a new property, which is what we specialize in. So this is very much pulling together the best of the best on these webinars. And they're very much not talking head events. We want to provide lots more information than the average webinar at the moment that you see. And they seem just to talk about bits and pieces and never actually present any facts. I often wonder, Jose Maria, maybe it's because they don't know the facts. Well, some of these events that I've been looking at.
Absolutely. Well, that's mainly our job, to obviously make things easy for the clients. That's obviously is not easy to, move from home, or maybe, invest your money in a holiday home. And you need a lawyer that obviously speaks your language. He's local. You can obviously communicate through email. If you have any questions or inquiries, you can always contact him. So that's what we're doing up to now. And people obviously seem to think that we're a very good law firm. So I'm very pleased tonight.
But also you and I have another public profile as well, don't we? We're very much involved in the presentations that happen, well, they haven't happened this year, at things like A Place in the Sun. Both you and I work, our presenters on the hub there. So we are recognised as being pretty expert in our particular fields.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I do miss obviously this kind of exhibitions, but yeah, we've been coming to this exhibitions for many years. As you say, I've been also dealing on the stage with many information seminars. People obviously wondering what are the legal steps to proceed when it comes to buying a property in Spain, and obviously all the tax involvement in that process. So, you know, I'm here to obviously help. Any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, and obviously you're more than welcome to come over to Spain and meet me personally.
Yeah, we'll cover that. I mean, so yesterday I was doing my TIE application down in Alicante, and who do I see in the offices but the man sitting in front of you there doing TIE applications for a variety of other clients. So it was quite a busy day down there yesterday.
Absolutely, yes.
You've had over 5,000 clients, but one of your initial clients was quite a famous person, wasn't it, when you started out in this area?
Yes, well, as I said, my dad and mum started the business. Obviously, in the early 90s, there was not as many properties built, and one of our obviously more than recognised client is Sir Terry Wogan, that obviously came to our law firm, and we obviously helped him out with his deeds and taxes, and he bought a property in Cabaroy. And we obviously still have contact with the family. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But, you know, we do have a good memory of him coming to us and obviously, you know, helping us and using us as a lawyer in Spain. So
why did you start? Why did, you know, the company start in the first place?
Yes, well, as I said, my mum is English, my dad is Spanish. So my dad is also a lawyer. So in the early 90s, obviously in this area, there was not, as I said, not much built. So they started helping mostly British clients coming over to help them out with obviously the buying process. And things went really well, obviously very well recognized and reputable, my dad in the area. And well, then after a few years, my dad semi-retired, he's still on the ball, and now it was our chance to obviously, you know, help him out, and my sister Victoria, that you know, and myself, with obviously all our team. And as I said, I'm very delighted with the team we've got, are doing our very best to obviously help clients and get all this services done as best we can.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, so we'll go into Sun Lawyers a bit in a second about the structure and everything, and we're going to talk about the process of buying a property. So I'm going to move across to my friend Mark now. I can say to these two guys, people may not be aware, we did a 19 event, I think it was, roadshow back in July and August in the UK. And I think Mark drew the short straw because he ended up doing most of the events with us and not getting back to Spain. He actually stayed on with us. And so, yeah, we had a fair amount of time together. But I love the story about the horse box, Mark.
Yeah, well,
when you came over originally, it was quite...
My brother persuaded me in 2002 to accompany him to Spain. I was a bit doubtful. I didn't think, you know, I didn't speak very much Spanish, but after a bit of, well, not very much persuasion, I agreed because I wanted to see newer lands. And basically, we came in my old library, which came from Red Roof. So we spent a year in that motorhome, and then my brother's family moved over, and, you know, I did a variety of different jobs, but by 2005, I began working for law firms.
And you've got a quite busy role at the moment. You've got this responsibility for the relocation work within Sun Lawyers, and it is a specialised area, isn't it? Let's be honest, you're learning. I think we're all learning all the time with the various twists and turns and changes. So I'm assuming you're quite busy at the moment. Yeah,
extremely. There's you know, constant changes. It's total new thing. Someone leaving Europe, so we're basically adapting to the circumstances, and we'll have many clients who want to apply for residency before the end of the year, and we're working tooth and nail to get things sorted on time.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll talk about it a bit later on, but I know it is still possible, potentially, if you do want to come and move over to Spain prior to the deadline, it's still possible to achieve that. But we'll cover that later on in the session when we talk about the famous TIE cards. I noticed we've already got a question about TIE cards appeared on the Q&A anyway, so don't worry, we'll come to that. Yeah. And also a question about later relocation. Again, we'll come to that as well.
Okay.
So let's now go into the bulk of the information now. And I'll start out by talking a bit about me and also about Medland. I personally now been here for close on 16 years. I relocated to Spain originally to retire, believe it or not. The idea wasn't to work, and that didn't last very long, where I started working for one of the local newspapers. And love it. You know, the area, I live in the same area as my legal colleagues here. I love the country. I love the lifestyle. I can live in Spain for probably 75% or less of the equivalent of living in the UK. And behind me, there's a photograph taken on Saturday morning at a place called Milpameras at the beach, where it was 23 degrees at 11 o'clock in the morning. People over here, it's turned a bit chillier now, but people over here literally up to the weekend were still in the sea during the day. That gives you an idea of the temperatures. Okay, let's have a look at what we're going to be talking about today then, shall we?
Yes.
Second. And here we go. So as I say, we've got 3 topics for today. I'm going to give you an update on the COVID situation and also some of the new rules and regulations literally that have come in over the last few days. We'll talk a bit about the buying process of buying a property and if there are any differences if you're buying currently as a holiday home or investment compared to a relocation property. And finally, the dreaded word Brexit and relocation and what the conditions are, but also to go about explaining some of the misunderstandings that exist. There's nothing better at the moment than going onto Facebook and having a look at some of the nonsense that the average barroom lawyer, should we describe them at, is quoting at the moment in terms of what they believe the conditions are and the hoops that you have to jump through. Bit about Medland. I'm sorry, I have to do the obligatory commercial. I know there are a number of people who are now on webinar number 5, so they've heard all this before, but we are a specialist new build property agent based in the Costa Blanca, Costa Calida, where we started back in 2013, and we deal with over 11 countries. So we're not solely a UK-based seller. We're a Spanish company with 46 staff, and we do everything. The reason for these webinars and this type of information is because we understand the process. We're not just selling the property, we're also doing the after sales and all of the completion work, working closely with the lawyers. And over the 350 kilometers that we cover in the Costa Blanca and Costa Calida area, there are over 700 new build developments. And this is our very unassuming low profile offices, which are just outside Torrevieja. This is the area we cover. As I mentioned earlier on, it's some 350 kilometers of coastline starting just short of Andalucía in an area called Aguilas, running through to the other side of Benidorm, going down towards Gandia and places like Calpe. And in fact, the next webinar we're doing will be on the northern Costa Blanca area. It's important to understand what happened with COVID and what's happened since the COVID outbreak. And the fact of the matter is that one of the areas that really wasn't affected was building. You know, we've even seen new projects come along and it hasn't stopped delivering properties, or there are still some very good finance deals out there. Again, the lenders are even keener now to offer money, but it didn't result in the prices crashing, both in the resale business or in the new build business. What it has resulted, however, is that some of the developers have many, many more properties now that are key ready, and they are offering deals on extras like furniture and air conditioning and pools. And I use a real example on a property that I sold 4 weeks ago, which was a fairly large villa in the Cabo Roig area, where the developer reduced the price for a key ready property from 445,000 euros to 369,000 euros, including everything. So if people are in a position and are willing to travel, there are more key ready properties and there are some very good offers out there. Really, the COVID effects have been minimal comparatively to what, unfortunately, we suffered in the early phases of the virus. But what Spain did was they did it in a different way. And what they did was very similar to what some of the UK proposals are now, is that they operate autonomous regions. Autonomous means they have autonomy within that district, for example, in Valencia, to impose their own regulations. And that's what they started out doing by closing the borders between the Valencia province and Murcia province and other ones. to stop people travelling, because the infection rate in our particular area, in the Valencia and even Murcia communities now, is some of the lowest rates in Spain. We are not seeing the amounts of infection. And in fact, also, if you look again at the rates today, we're now coming down in Spain to between 6,000 and 7,000 infections per day, mostly in the northern parts of Spain, mainly in the areas around Madrid, Barcelona, etc. Not down in the coastal regions in the same way. And we didn't see the hotels, the airports, the bars closed. They remained open initially with takeaway, and now pretty much, although with a lower amount of occupation, business as usual. What they did do, however, was they introduced a curfew in our area, and they're not planning to reopen the borders now until after the 9th. And then some new rules were introduced again this week, which seems to have confused people. So let's just quickly run through them for you. And that is now, if you are arriving in Spain from any of the infected areas, any of the red zones, which includes the UK, of course, you have to have a COVID test, which is the PCR test, the swab test, available, which has been taken or done 72 hours before you arrive in Spain. Not a quick test, it has to be one of the 4 PCR tests. And you have to carry with you, either digitally or printed out, a COVID certificate, which also includes your passport number. And when you complete the mandatory FCF declaration form, which gives you the QR code, which is scanned at the airport, you also have to put the test results into that digital certificate. There are now various online companies offering both postal type kits, and also the leading pharmacies, the likes of Lloyd's Pharmacy and Boots, are also offering in-pharmacy tests now, which comply to the fit to fly, as they call it, regulations. It doesn't mean that some people are sort of inferring at the moment that you have to physically go and have the test done. You can do it remotely, you can do it via, as I say, one of these kits. And you can do it in the timescales, because there are companies now who have defined the timescales required, that you need to send the kit back 5 days prior to travel, and they will guarantee 24-hour to 48-hour return of that kit, which would qualify you for the 72-hour timescale. We were saying yesterday there is no testing option on arrival at the airport. There actually is. The problem is that if you do get tested and you are found to be positive and you are found to be traveling, they can fine you up to €6,000. So please get the test done before you travel. It makes it far easier for everybody on arrival. And the second introduction was the one that was announced yesterday for the UK. And that is from the 15th of December, you can reduce the number of days that you have to spend in quarantine from 14 down to 5, or in reality 6, by having a test. And for this one, they'll accept the fast test that you can get. Again, though, these have to be done remotely. They have to be done by obtaining the test kit from a third party and returning it, because obviously if you're in quarantine, you shouldn't go out and have a test done at a pharmacy or a testing centre. The point here to make also is the NHS tests are not acceptable under this new regime. And we are launching tonight a special offer for people, which is subject to some conditions, who are in a position and willing to travel to Spain, that we will pay for those tests for people that can now travel. The fact is that if you were coming over on a viewing trip, say leaving about the 13th, it is now possible not to lose 2 or 3 days from work, rather than the 14 days that have previously you'd have to experience under the quarantine regulations. Please bear in mind that there are conditions attached to this. You have to view exclusively with us. If you want to come out on a non-exclusive basis, then we will still pay for the test, subject to you buying a property from us. But it is very safe in this area. They've already done the studies on the aircraft, etc. And we do welcome people if they are looking to travel at home. Right, we're moving over now to Sun. That's my 2 pence over. I'd like to now go back to Jose Maria. We've done some already, Jose Maria, but let's have a little chat about you, because I mentioned earlier on, is it 35 or 38 years now?
It's 30, well, obviously 38 years now, because we are in 2020. But I don't obviously have a good memory of this last year, but never mind. We're hoping to have a better year next year. But yes, it's been 38 years now trading. And as I said, well, we've had clients coming over from all parts of the world. Our mainly market is still the British market. Even so, we've had obviously a big demand recently, as Mark mentioned, of a lot of customers asking for their Spanish residencias.
Yeah.
But yes, we're still obviously trading. And as I said, I'm more than happy to go through all the steps regarding the purchase process.
And that photograph, I know, is your office there in Cabin Roy, which always confuses me because it's quite narrow, but it goes back a long way, doesn't it? There's a lot more people in there than you'd actually expect when you're going through the door.
That's right, yes. Well, all our staff speaks English. As I said, we cover different languages. So even so, you come from the UK and obviously you want to speak to somebody in your own language. We cover, you know, Swedish, Polish, French, Flemish.
Probably not relevant for this broadcast.
No.
But you're not just the property lawyers, though, aren't you? You cover all aspects of law. You'll cover criminal law and traffic and everything. It's not just some lawyers. It's just purely property. That's
right. Yes, we obviously offer a range of services. Not only property, as you said, any aspects, tax matters, litigation. Also, we do wills, inheritance procedures. So any aspect in Spain that obviously you'll need a lawyer, obviously we're more than happy to help. We offering our first free consultation. That I think is also important because people, you know, like to explain to us first, you know, different options, and then, you know, we can then estimate our fees, and then they decide to go ahead or not. So yeah, I think we are, you know, as I said, a family law firm, trying our best to help people around, because, you know, it's something sometimes difficult to, you know, to come to Spain not knowing the language, not knowing obviously any law in Spain, any regulation. So you need, as I said, a local lawyer, independent lawyer that you can trust, and you can obviously leave all your legal aspects to him. And
I always explain to my clients that it's nice to have a lawyer that has an office local to where you buy a property, because then if you do receive this document that you're worried about, you can literally just walk in through the door and say, help, what's this?
That's right. Yes, well, this is one of the decisions we made. We've obviously have 6 offices around the area. So anytime from Monday to Friday, you can obviously arrange an appointment and come and see one of our experts, and then they can advise you and then go from there, because it is important to have obviously sometimes some help. That can come as you say, a tax letter, or unfortunately, you know, somebody has passed away, you need to, you know, go through an inheritance procedure. So that's the kind of things I like to, you know, give a personal touch to our clients.
Are you also a HESTOR? I know you offer some HESTOR services, but
yes, we do. We also offer, well, in the case of driving license, if you need to change your UK driving license to the Spanish driving license, we also do that for you. We also change your number plates in your car. If you need obviously to come over in your UK car and you need to change it into Spanish number plates, we can help you with that. So that's, as I said, we have a full range of services that we can help you with.
But just to explain, a HESTOR is more of an accountant, aren't they, in Spain, rather than a lawyer? That's a split. So, yes. For example, I have a HESTOR that does my renter, does my tax and various bits and pieces, not necessarily a solicitor.
No, but we have this department, obviously running, and anything, as I said, anything that you need, you're more than happy to ask, and we'll give you an answer.
Right, so I always say to people, as far as buying properties are concerned, the key thing is to follow the rules. If you follow the rules and you use a decent lawyer to do the searches and checks and everything for you, it's actually a very safe country in which to buy property.
Yes, well, I always, as I say, I always advise our clients that even if obviously they come with us or not, to have a lawyer involved, because I think it's peace of mind. I think at the end of the day, you are risking a big amount of money, probably all your savings, if you don't have somebody who can obviously you can trust and who can help you. So I think it's, as I said, peace of mind. I would never buy a property in a foreign country abroad if I didn't have a lawyer, because I think it's something that obviously guarantees you the whole procedure. So
Oh,
we need to do that, and obviously in your language. So I'm more than happy to go through obviously the steps, and it's quite simple, as you say, but you need to follow the rules. Unfortunately, I had a few citizens, clients that came to me after they've already obviously signed the contract. They haven't really read it because they didn't understand what they were signing. And then, well, there's been some issues. But I said, why you didn't come to see me before? Well, always the same answer. Well, I obviously trusted the agent. I thought that the agent was going. You don't need to trust anyone, because at the end of the day, you need an independent lawyer. Obviously, agents do their job, they're trying to sell, but it's important that somebody do all the checks and searches on your property. So as I said, it's a guaranteed procedure, and you don't have any hiccups.
there's confusion between contracts and reservation contracts. Now, I'm because you've known me long enough, I'm fairly stringent when it comes to, I never ask anybody to sign a reservation contract or a contract that hasn't been checked by a lawyer. One of the things I always do is physically, take the client along to a lawyer with the paperwork before they sign or pay anything. But that isn't the norm, is it?
No, it's not. I've seen many agents obviously pushing very hard to get the reservation or deposit paid to the account. And I think it's important, as you said, that obviously an independent law firm comes and gets involved and goes through all the searches involved, and obviously confirms that obviously you're buying the right property with no issues. Because at the end of the day, it can really, change completely this scenario if obviously there's hiccups that you don't or you're not aware. So, it's important, I think, very important, the figure of a lawyer involved, more or less in a country that obviously you don't know the regulations, you don't know obviously the language. So, it's, as I said, it's peace of mind.
One of the things that amazes me, and I only sell new build now, but historically in the past, how few people, when they buy a property, a second-hand property, because normally a resale property includes everything, do an inventory, do an actual document or part of the reservation contract, whether it be photographs or listed out, is what is included with the property.
Yeah, well, I've seen lots of inventory lists, and it's amazing that people can obviously go through, what they're leaving on the property, like forks, spoons, cutlery, teapots, absolutely everything. So I think at the end of the day, and this is my personal opinion, it is important, obviously, somebody like your agent helps you out with what were you buying, but it's also very important as part of the whole procedure that you obviously name an independent lawyer and also currency exchange company. That's the three aspects that you need to fulfill when you want to buy a property in Spain. I think that's as I said, peace of mind for your purchase.
Well, and also a mortgage. If you are going for a mortgage, it's very, very advantageous. And we've done this on a previous webinar, to get a mortgage offer before you come to Spain. It just makes it so much easier when you know how much you can afford and what it's going to cost you.
Yeah, well, yeah, it all depends obviously on your quote, but yeah, if you need a mortgage, your mortgage broker will provide you with the best deal, and obviously go through any conditions. Nowadays, Spanish banks are giving very good interest rates, so I think it's also another option if you don't obviously want to spend all your savings in this property. So yeah, why not? I'm more than delighted to obviously go through that also, all your mortgage conditions, and advise you if it's more than recommended to go ahead.
Okay, so moving on, I mean, say searches are pretty much the same, doesn't matter new or resale. You're looking, aren't you, for any debts on the property. You're looking to see whether the person that's actually selling it owns the property.
That's
if they've
right.
paid their rates or their SUMA, if they're, because I understand in Spain, if there's a debt on the property and you don't find it, it becomes your debt.
That's right. Yeah, that's also very important. As you say, if the seller in this case obviously has a debt, or even a builder has a debt, and you don't find it, you can inherit that debt. So as I said, basically our job is to confirm that the property is free of charges or encumbrances, and confirm that, you know, the developer or in this case the seller party are the right people that obviously they're selling it, so we can draft the contract.
But in reality, nothing's changed. If you're going to buy a property, really the only documentation you need initially is to have an NI number. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And a bank account.
A bank account.
And that's about it, isn't it, Jose Maria? There's nothing else really. And obviously funds and have signed a contract, obviously.
Yes,
but apart from that,
yes.
nothing's really changed, is it?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. So, you know, NI number is one of the first requirements you need to obviously get to apply to buy a property. It's quite a simple procedure. I will always recommend that you can all apply for it through the Spanish consulate. That, as I say now, is not easy to get an appointment, and obviously you need a bit of time. Or you can sign a power of attorney to your lawyer, and then your lawyer can obviously apply for it in Spain. So you don't need to be present to apply for your NI number. It's basically an ID number to be part in the Spanish system. So, you know, I always recommend our clients that they give us power of attorney. I think 95% of our clients give us power of attorney. You then obviously forget about the whole steps, as I said, of opening a bank account and getting your NI number. You'll only need to, as I said, once you've got your bank account in Spain, transfer the funds, and then you're ready to complete and enjoy your property. So it's a very straightforward procedure.
Let's cover a couple of questions here that have come in at this point. One is, if the fees, are the fees based on the value of each property, or do you have a standard charge list for your services?
Yes, well, we offer a standard charge on our fees, and the reason is because, you know, I think, well, this is my own personal opinion, I think it's the same job for us for a property of 1 million euros than an apartment of 100,000 euros. It's the same process. Obviously, the clients need their NI number, as I said, they'll need the bank account, and we'll do the searches. So once you've done that searches, confirm that obviously everything is in order, we've got your NI number, we've got your bank account, and even if we have power of attorney, we can complete the property without you being present the day of completion. It's a very straightforward procedure, but as I said, you need somebody in Spain, your representative or your lawyer, who can deal with all these matters, and it'll be much easier.
A couple of questions here on non-residence tax. Whoops, that's horrible. Non-residence tax, when you pay them. So I know, for example, for a new build property, we're talking about the non-residence tax that they have to pay, which a lot of agents don't talk about. When do they pay that? Isn't it a year after the purchase or something, Jose Maria? How does that work?
Yes. The non-resident tax is due a year after you've become a Spanish property owner. That means the day you've signed your property deeds, you've completed your deeds, a year after. So it's also a tax declaration that you need to present at the tax office. Is due by the end of the year, 31st of December, the last day you need to obviously present your tax declaration, and it's calculated on your council tax. So once you've got your council tax, you'll need to see your lawyer or obviously your tax advisor, and he, with that council tax receipt, will calculate you your tax, non-resident tax. We're talking about a small amount. People may think that obviously in Spain taxes are expensive. Well, they're not. Taxes are very cheap here, depending obviously on the value of the property. It'll be roughly between 200, 250 euros a year. So much cheaper than the UK, and obviously what is paid once a year.
Couple of quick answers, Brian. Yes, we will be covering the 90-day conversation during this presentation. And an interesting one here as well from Janet Hall. Does the legal side indemnify any liabilities such as the debt of the builder? So if you are okay and if they have any problems, then I insured for it. Well, surely, Jose Maria, the way it works at the time of completion, you're checking and discharging any mortgages or debts or charges on the property anyway, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we guarantee that, as I said, the property will be sold to you without any charge or encumbrances, completely freehold, no debts.
Another one here from Stuart Sugden. Having a bank account set up and ready for the house move, bills, direct debits, especially when applying for residency to prove your income. Stuart, we'll talk about the bank account and proving income later on. But the sooner you can open a bank account, to be really honest with you, the better. If your lawyer has a power of attorney, they can do it for you. It's how all your bills are paid in Spain. So all of your electricity, water, rates, etc., are all paid in Spain by direct debit. So hopefully that answers that question for you. So power of attorney we've discussed. Let's move on and have a look at. So are there really any differences between buying a new build property and a resale property? Certainly off plan, I know there are. Off plan, obviously, we've got to look at the bank guarantee system. You're going to get your 10-year structural guarantee on it. You're snagging guarantees as well. But there aren't that many more differences, are there, Jose Maria? It's pretty much, again, contractually a very similar process, especially if it's kept ready.
Yeah, no at all. Obviously, from our side, from the legal side, it's the same process. Because as I said, there'll be a contract, there'll be an NI number requested, there'll be a bank account, and at the end of the day, we'll need to go and sign the deeds with you or with obviously the power of attorney. And there's no main difference. I would mainly point out the difference of the taxes. If you buy a resale, obviously the taxes are different from a new build in this region. Okay, there's also different taxes involved depending on the region you purchase the property. So if it's Murcia region, Costa Calida is a different tax involved regarding obviously the Valencia region. So, but mainly our job here is the same. It's obviously, as I said, guarantee the whole process, so you can enjoy your property and obviously enjoy the sun and the area.
I think it's important also when we talk about deposits, that if you pay a deposit on a reservation for a property, normally that deposit is non-refundable.
Yes.
That's the norm, isn't it? Don't,
right.
Agents are telling you, sign here and give us your credit card now, and if it doesn't go through, then you get your money back. That isn't always the case.
Yes. Well, I always say to my clients that it's better if once you've chosen your, dream home here in Spain, that you tell the agent, look, I need to speak to my lawyer. That they'll probably understand for sure, and then we can do all the searches. As I said, it's peace of mind. At the end of the day, you'll need somebody to do all the searches. So I wouldn't sign a contract, even a reservation contract, and put down a deposit, if your lawyer hasn't, started the ball rolling and haven't done any searches on the property. In your case, and I'll obviously say that in your case, we do have a reservation contract that says that obviously deposit is refundable, because we know that all your properties have been checked by our law firm, and the case that you had any issue, obviously that deposit will be refundable from your company. But I wouldn't advise any of you to sign a contract, put down a deposit if you haven't had first a word with your lawyer and he's confirmed the paperwork.
And strangely enough, as an agent, I would agree with that advice, by the way. I know it's rare in the industry that I'm in,
Okay.
but a sale really isn't a sale until the person is happy and they've paid the money.
That's right.
Pointless exercise. So what happens if the buyer pulls out? Let's say they've paid, in the case of because normally you'd pay a reservation fee and then you'd pay a deposit of, I don't know, 20%, 30% on a resale and maybe 40%, 50% on a new build.
Yes.
What happens if the buyer pulls out?
Well, if the buyer pulls out, there'll be a clause, okay, in that contract, obviously applying to the Article 1450 of the Civil Spanish Code, that he loses all the money paid up to the day he's breached the contract. So it's very important that if you go ahead with the contract, you fulfill the contract, because in all parts of the world, if somebody doesn't want to go ahead and they've already paid an amount of money, it's going to be very difficult or merely impossible to get that money back. So at the end of the day, I want people really to think that if they are willing to buy a property in Spain, they need to commit. And they can't really, leave it to see, well, let's see how it goes. No, it's an important step. It is a very important step. And, you can lose a lot of money if obviously you have signed a contract and you finally breach it. So I would advise that, you have a thought deeply what you're doing, and always, have a chat with your lawyer to advise you what to do.
What happens if the seller pulls out? So you buy a second-hand property and then the seller decides that he doesn't want to sell it to you anymore, and you paid your 30%.
Well, also going back to the Spanish Civil Code, in the case the seller pulled out, well, in that case, he's obliged to pay the buyer the double of the amount the buyer has put down in that contract. So, for example, if he's paid, I don't know, 10,000 euros deposit, the seller changes his mind, he doesn't want to sell it, well, the buyer is obliged to 20,000 euros. But that needs to go through a litigation procedure. So it needs to go through courts. It's not easy to obviously get the seller to pay that, straight away. It normally needs to go to court. So, as I said, it is important in that way that your agent confirms that the seller is still going ahead, is probably have signed what we call a seller agreement that obviously confirms, the price, terms and conditions of that contract. And then once you've got confirmation from the seller party, then you'll sign that contract between buyer and seller, and then go ahead and complete the property. So I normally haven't seen, much sellers changing their mind. It's more likely that the buyer changes his mind. So I always insist the buyers that they are 100% keen on going ahead, don't change their mind, because obviously it's going to be difficult to get that money back if it happens.
We do have a number of questions about pensions and tax and things. I'm not going to answer them necessarily during this webinar, please excuse me, because we will be holding a separate tax and employment and various other webinar very soon. I will try, however, but I will pass them on, if people are okay, to the various tax experts, so that if your requirement is urgent, we can answer it more quickly. But in reality, there's no change. Pre and post Brexit, pre and post January, if you're buying a holiday home or an investment property, there are very few changes in the process. The buying fees will still steer for a new build around about between 13 and 14%.
That's right.
If you want to sell the property, the tax liabilities doesn't change. But what about this 90-day rule? Is this something for Mark to explain, Jose Maria, or for you to explain? Because people still seem to be being confused. I still read people on Facebook saying, I'm going to stay for 6 months and, you know, then I'm going to go home. But it doesn't work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. To be honest, I rather prefer March joining in that type of matters because he's the relocation manager. Right. And obviously he's got more experience than me in that kind of question. Okay. So I'll leave it to Mark.
We'll come back to that with Mark when we move on to him. There are some changes, however, post-Brexit, and they've not yet been confirmed. But if you look at other non-EU countries like Norway and Iceland, the amount of tax that you pay on an investment and on rental income is 24%. At the moment within the EU, I understand it's 19%.
That's right, yes.
And the other thing that will change is that you won't be able to obtain any, at the moment, still not confirmed. But again, if they go down the same line as other non-EU countries, you won't be able to claim any tax relief for expenditure against the rental income.
That's right, yes.
But there are some tax benefits of buying as a company, aren't there? You can set up a Spanish company or buy through a UK company.
Yes. We've had a few clients that, they wanted to set up a Spanish company and then buy a property that we can do that for you. We've even had clients that have UK companies and they wanted to buy that property through their UK companies. So at the end of the day, you know, to put a property in a company name is something that we can do for you. It's basically the same procedure. Well, the administrator of the company needs an NI number. I always advise our clients to leave us power of attorney so we can deal with the company matters. We'll need to register that company, UK company, in the tax office as a non-resident company in Spain. And then you can always purchase the property once you've got your Spanish bank account. Benefits of setting up a UK company and buying a property or purchasing a property in Spain. Well, there are really no benefits. It's a question of if you like to obviously put that property in your UK assets and then obviously declare your income here in Spain. I can't see the benefits of putting a property through a UK company, to be honest. But people, you know, seem to think that it's more beneficiary for them if it's already set up in the company. So I can't really say any more benefits than that. I always recommend that it's easier, as I said, to put the properties in the names of who are going to be the owners and make it simple, to be honest. But people, our clients, you know, have asked us in many occasions, so why not?
Just a few more questions here that I can run up. Yes, Sabish, there are funeral plans in Spain. In fact, our next presentation will include, in addition to the private health and options, also the funeral options that are available here, funnily enough. Buying process, how long does it take? Really, David, it depends on the property. You know, I've seen people do it literally in 2 to 3 weeks from start to finish. It really isn't sort of set time, is it, Jose Maria? They're saying how long does it take to buy a property? It can be incredibly quick in Spain.
Yes, well, as you mentioned, if it's a new build, well, it needs to have all the permissions, planning permissions, and obviously all the paperwork in order. It's important that your lawyer asks for what we call the habitation certificate. Normally, the new builds also are provided with what we call a 10-year guarantee, just in case you have any problems in the structure. But nowadays, you know, I want to make clear that, and you can obviously confirm this, you know, new builds in Spain are doing extremely well. You know, builders, their work are amazing. Maybe in the old days, obviously the finish of the property were not as good nowadays, But nowadays, you know, it's amazing. I was, funny enough, a few days ago in a complex, and you know, it was immaculate how the builder has finished. You know, all the little, you know, things that they've added to the property, the aircon, you know, perfect windows, very nice floor. So you know, it is very important that you fall in love with your property, because it's something that you're going to enjoy for many years. So I think the job of an agent is also very important, because it's not only to show you the property, it's also to show you the area, what you can do if you like golf, if you obviously, you know, you're more concerned.
Yeah, it's the location that's key. Linda,
Right.
no, to answer your question, no. Once you've signed a contract for a property, the price cannot change.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's only, yes, the exchange rate will change, but the price which is on the contract is the price in euros. If the euro goes up or the euro goes down, the ultimate price that you will pay will change, but not by as much as 10%.
Yeah.
Even with the currency fluctuation, if you look at the rates of fluctuation at the moment, we're sitting between 110 and 112 for the last year approximately.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm going to go over to Mark now for the fun bit. I'm not saying your bit wasn't the fun bit, Jose Maria, but we know that this is the real one of the game, the primary topics at the moment. So let's hand over to Mark and talk about the relocation system and the residency situation. And thank you for that session.
It was a pleasure.
Mark, over to you, young man, the very busy man in the world at the moment.
Yes.
I understand that it is still potentially possible, if you come to Spain prior to December the 31st, to obtain residency. By residency, we mean nowadays the TIE card, don't we? The TIE card is the document that's issued to UK non-Schengen people.
Yeah, it's a new photographic ID card. I arranged my own one already.
Oh, you've done it? I was doing mine yesterday when I bumped into Jose Maria.
I'm very proud of it.
I haven't got mine yet. Mine will be 5 weeks.
Yes, I know. So yeah, it's still possible to apply before the end of December. You know, prior to the new TIE card, there were the Foreigners Office was asking for a period of 3 months to have 9,000 for an applicant, for a non-worker, to have in their Spanish bank account. But we've found that they are accepting funds abroad too. So if you have sufficient financial means in the UK too for the period of 3 months, well, if you can lodge the amount required here, and we can show a 3-month statement in the UK and 3-month statement in Spain, we can still probably get a positive result. Obviously, you'll need to have healthcare too.
They have to be in, the important point, Mark, is they have to be in Spain, don't they? They have to physically be in the country. They have to have a property in the country or a rental contract in the company in order to start the process.
Yeah, well, there are certain processes that you need to be there in person. So, you know,
like the one I did yesterday with the fingerprints.
Yes. Well, first of all would be the padron. Okay, this is where you register living in the property in the local town hall. You'd have to be there in person. I have in Torrevieja, which is just a little further north from us, doing it electronically. But, you know, to do electronic applications, normally you'd need to do a digital signature. That's the next thing that you'd have to be in person to do. And obviously we can apply for the residency electronically also. So provided we have all the paperwork gathered together, health insurance, financial means, and digital signature, power of attorney, if we can have all these documents all gathered and scanned, we can submit applications. Okay.
But people think they're picking on the Brits. I think some of the stuff you read is why they're doing it to us. But in reality, for the other non-EU people, as I say, Iceland, Norway, for example, that we deal with, it's the same process, isn't it? They still need to prove their income. They still need to have private medical cover. They still need to do exactly the same things as they're requiring UK people to do.
Exactly. Europeans and from the European Economic Area, they still need to have financial means, healthcare, and basically to prove that it wouldn't become a burden on the state. Okay.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's a very good thing for the country, the fact that they are looking at your ability to live here and look after yourself, because I've seen in the past too many people come to Spain with limited income expecting they're going to get a job tomorrow, and that's how they're going to survive. And I think, you know, that is a good basis perhaps to start when you're going to reconsider then, aren't you? If they're asking you to prove that you've got 9,000 euros or 12,000 euros or 18,000 euros in the bank, you're going to look at it fairly carefully, aren't you?
Yeah. The other type of applicant could be someone with a state pension. They wouldn't need to show the funds in the Spanish account, but they'd need to show at least around 750 euros per month in pensions coming in. But, you know, if you have a state pension, you can passport your healthcare from the UK with the S1 certificate. And under the withdrawal agreement, if you're a non-worker still, i.e. you don't have a state pension, you're not in Spanish employment, under the withdrawal agreement, you could retire in the future if you got your residency before the end of the transition period. And also you can passport your healthcare at a later date. So that you're not excluded in the future, provided you get your residency during the transition period. Yeah,
the other thing that people don't appreciate is not only the quality of the healthcare in Spain. You know, we are, according to the World Health Organization, the 7th best provider of healthcare in Spain. Our doctor to patient ratio, population ratio is 4.7 to 100 compared to 2.8 in the UK. So in fairness, and it is possible after 12 months, I understand, to pay to join the Spanish health scheme, regardless of any conditions that you have. As you can see the last one item there, where I understand you can pay 60 euros per month per person if you're under 65 and have full health cover in Spain.
Yeah, if you have your residence at least 1 year, that means you'll, you know, as an early retiree, for example, then you will be able to submit an application to the convenio. It's called the convenio, and you can pay, as you mentioned, 60 euros per person up to the age of 65. It will go up after 65, just that shortfall up to your state pension. But once you have your state pension, you can order your S1s and then you can get the free healthcare.
And again, people talk about, oh, it's another expense, but we live in Spain far cheaper than people live in the UK. My rates, my council tax is 220 euros a year, not 220 euros a month. I pay less for my motor insurance. I pay less for my diesel. I pay less to eat out. It's like when people are looking at private medical cover, please don't pinch pennies. This is what's going to support you health-wise for a year. You know, people are shopping around for the cheapest deal to get their residency and getting stuck because I understand it's more difficult if there is what they call a co-payment. In other words, if you have to pay anything, contribute towards the care, there is more of a problem getting your residency. But this is the healthcare that you're going to use for 12 months. My own particular quote, without co-payment, I don't need it because I'm on the system, was 72 euros a month per person without any co-payments from one company. So, you know, you have to consider the whole package is what I'd say to people. If you are considering moving to Spain, look at everything. The electricity is cheaper, our water's cheaper, the car insurance is cheaper. Yeah. You know, I'm certainly saving more than 60 euros a month compared to what I would be paying in the UK.
Yeah, coming back to the convenio, the 60 euros a month. Well, you know, the earlier that you contract the private health insurance, the cheaper it's going to be, and you may find the increases might be not so significant, and by the time you get to 65, it will jump to around 157 euros, but you may be paying less for that private to get to the age where you can get your state pension and your S1 certificate. So it's well worth investigating and seeing what kind of cost it's going to be.
Okay, before we move on to this, Mark, what about this 180-day rule that is so contentious at the moment?
Well, basically, Spain is in the Schengen area, and there's a Schengen 90-day rule. It's always been the case. UK and Ireland are not in the Schengen zone, but it's never really been checked or really been looked at basically. After the transition period, more than likely they'll be stamping our passports and they'll be looking at the period of time you've been in Spain. Okay, so basically the rule is you could come over to France or Holland or Spain, spend 90 days. If you spend the full 90 days, then you'd have to leave the Schengen area, France, the whole area, for the further 90 days to reset that clock. An interesting thing that people should know is if you were to spend, let's say, 30 days, you come for a month to Spain, and then you left for a full 30 days, that will reset the clock straight away. So you could come a further 90 after the 30, but you'd have to be out for 90. So some people might not do the full 90. They might just do short trips. But if you leave for the same period as you were here, it will reset the clock.
I think that, again, we don't know how they're going to manage it yet. We don't know whether these barriers at the airport, you hear stories about they're going to record your time in, time out, and might be stamping. We honestly don't know, do we? We haven't got a crystal ball. So the rules are the rules. And by the way, the rules should have applied to the other non-Schengen people for the last so many years. Again, going back to people in Iceland and Norway and various other countries. Yeah,
basically, what I have read is for tourism, for a holiday maker coming to Spain after the end of the transition period, we shouldn't be needing visas, but possibly later may be a visa requirement for working. You may need to get a work permit, and there are certain non-lucrative visas, non-working visas, so they could be arranged via the Spanish consulate post-Brexit. But we'll see exactly how we're treated. And what
in a later event, we'll talk about these non-lucrative visas, as they call it. So very quickly there, this is really the paperwork for a new TA application, and you can put this information in online, and you'll get a response back as to whether it's been accepted or rejected.
Yeah, and Alicante takes a couple of weeks. Murcia about a month to get a reply.
Okay. And if people are under 16, the additional document is you have to produce a birth certificate. On the subject of the padron, getting a padron is where you register at the town hall as a resident in that property. And you'll hear stories about Alicante, where we, Orihuela Costa, you can't get them. You can get them, it's more who you know, rather than necessarily what you know. And I know that companies that are processing them can go down with an application and still obtain a padron within the time scale.
Yeah, well, the new thing with the Orihuela Costa is we've been able to submit residency applications without a padron, but retroactively, going to the padron office, showing them the paperwork that we presented the application, and they fast track an appointment. And if you do have once we have applied, there could be a requirement letter come through, and you'd have 10 days to submit your padron, but we can buy further time up to a month. So we can apply for residency in Orihuela Costa as long as we submit it before the end of December, and basically follow the deadlines to submit the padron at a later date. But we have been able to get padrons later and then present them, and then receive what they call the resolution letter. That's a positive outcome of the application.
And if somebody was going to apply for a TIE after Brexit, there really wouldn't be too much difference, would there, from what we understand? It's still going to be the same documentation.
Well, we don't know exactly right now, but after talks with an agent on the Orihuela Costa, I've been informed you could probably come to Spain as we can do now and submit the application here. Not quite a worst case scenario as somebody who might be coming from America, for example.
Yeah.
They would do the whole process in the Spanish consulate, and they would get an annual residency permit, then they'd do a 2-year renewal, and then a further 2-year renewal. But we'll see if they'll allow us to do 5-year permits, and if we can do it on the ground in Spain, rather than having to do everything before we come.
And once you've got the residency, there's there's a process that you take people through, which is where in Spain, we have to do an annual residence tax return, which is the renter, of course. Changing your driving license, you can't do that clearly till you're a resident. We always advise you register, don't we, on the Spanish social security system, because then that ties into the healthcare, and you guys I know can do it online.
Yeah,
and if you are working self-employed, we're not going to go into it now. It'll be the topic of a different webinar. We have the autonomo self-employed system. Also, remember, if you're applying for residency and you are employed, then you won't be putting in your savings. You will actually be presenting your contract of employment, won't you?
Yeah, you need at least 750 euros coming in
a month,
either self-employed or on a work contract. If you can show you've got 750 a month, then you're fine. You're paying into the system. You'd be paying your own social security if you're self-employed, or if you're employed on a work contract, your employer will be paying your social security. Just coming back to the driving license, Roy, it's just this last week we've had an update that we can submit the first stage for Brits to have the check done to the DVLA only with your NIE. So, people that still don't have resolution letters, they're just about to submit the application. As long as you have an NIE, well, I think we can do it without an NIE, actually. I've been informed. We can submit submit an application. What we need to do is before the end of December, the DVLA says if you're still qualified or if you're disqualified. We need to get that, the go ahead from the DVLA before the end of December. But we can't do that now without the residency and without the resolution letter.
Okay.
A new thing that's just come in.
And 2 questions here from Yvonne Green. We don't see any reason why UK residents won't be able to move to Spain after Brexit. It's the same as the US. It's the same as many other countries. So
it's just,
there's no logical reason why. They still want, one thing Spain need is they need the income that comes from people that come and live in the country.
Yeah, well,
however, we believe that they will probably work on the 180 days. So no, you won't be able to come and stay 7 months necessarily on the system.
Well, you could get up to almost a 6-month period, but you'd have to chop it into 90. So that's 180 days you could have spent.
And Nigel, no, it is unlikely that the proof of income will change after December. They still will require the medical certificate, the medical cover, and also you to prove that you can live and financially support yourself in Spain.
Yeah, the only difference it could be the financial means could go up if, as I said, the worst case scenario of someone like from the United States came. So they might ask for a bit more funds, but we'll see as time will tell exactly what they'll require.
And to answer your question, Donna, yes, if you are already living in Spain and you have not applied and you do not have residency, you should be doing it now. There are too many people who are currently under the radar who think that the fact they've been living here for all these years and actually not as a resident, whether it be a fiscal resident or a whatever, that you are in danger of getting caught out. And if you do get caught out, that's the one thing you really don't want to do in Spain. Get on the wrong side of the authorities when it comes to things like this. You should be applying for residency now.
If you overstayed for the 90-day rule as a non-resident, then you may be blocked entry. You may have to leave, or you might not want to leave the country because they'll start stamping your passport and then you can't come back. So you might feel a bit isolated that you can't go back to the UK. So it's well worth sorting your paperwork out and submitting before the end of December. It's not too late.
No, Gary, one thing about the healthcare question is that there is a belief that even up to Brexit time that the UK will sign a reciprocal health agreement with the EU countries. Northern Ireland, even though they're part of the UK, have already done this. They've already agreed a reciprocal health agreement for people that are from Northern Ireland. We are hoping that it happens, but please don't quote me. There are no guarantees that agreement will be signed. Fair comment, Mark?
Yes.
Janet, the broadcast and the slides will all be available on YouTube from tomorrow. So if you go to the Medland area of YouTube, you'll find copies of our previous 5 webinars and this one, where clearly then you can see copies of all the slides and the presentations that we've given today. Golden visa question, Mark.
Yeah.
How much do you know about golden visas?
Something. If you know, the main process would be that you would obtain like a holiday or a non-lucrative sort of visa to come to Spain, view the properties. You know, that would be a convenient time to meet the lawyer, grant a power of attorney, and that will allow us to begin certain steps like applying for an NIE, have the bank account. And if you invested in €500,000 in property or €1 million in investments, you know, in bonds, government bonds, or in business, then you'd be able to apply for the golden visa. And it would be in, you know, need to be in just, you know, one name, the €500,000. So if you're going to be buying together, you'd have to invest like €1 million.
Yeah.
But once you've found the property, you've returned to your country, then the lawyer will be able to handle the purchase procedure on your behalf, and then we could submit an application in Madrid, and then you'd have for yourself and your spouse and your children and parents, you'd be able to relocate to Spain. If you didn't want to physically live here for you know, for that long, that you'd have to spend, I'm sure it's around a week a year. As long as you spend a small amount of time per year, you can maintain this freedom of the golden visa. It's mainly for business people to have the freedom to be able to travel and go to certain countries.
Okay, there are a few questions left. They mainly revolve around pensions and taxation. So I think that's about it from that perspective. What the final thing to come on to is, obviously, if you are looking at properties, please visit our website. You'll have our contact details next. If you know anybody else interested in these topics, they will be on YouTube, along with the other 5 webinars that we've had given so far on various things that we are offering now. Not only the £99 per person viewing trips, but we will also fund the necessary tests now, the COVID tests, for you to come to Spain. And of course, we'll be doing more webinars. You can contact us via the web, via email, via telephone, via WhatsApp. We are available pretty much all of the time. And we'll come to the contact details in just a second. And this is the webinars. So at the moment, the next one coming up will be on the 9th of December, same time, where we'll cover the Costa Blanca North and also look at the medical cover and funeral plans. And if you go back over the previous ones, they're all on YouTube. There's buying on a golf resort. There's why buy new and the mortgage process. There's new build versus resales with the currency system, and also some golf information. So there's plenty of webinar information on there that you can go back over if you didn't view any of the other ones. And just here are the individual contact details. And I know that all of the people you've spoken to today will be more than happy to hear from you. So it only leaves me to thank my guest presenters this evening for taking time this evening and come and talk to people. I'm sure I know that they're going to be involved in some of the taxation ones that we're going to be doing, and also the employment ones that we're going to do, because I know, again, Jose Maria, employment law is, again, one of your particular specialities.
That's right, yes. Well, for us, it's been a pleasure. Always, as I said, welcome everyone to come to Spain. I think, you know, it's a wonderful country, and obviously, you know, I think, as I said, you always need to trust a lawyer, obviously a estate agent, and a currency company, and you'll be fine.
And Mark, thank you as always for the expertise. I know how busy you are at the moment, so thanks a lot for coming on this evening, because I know it's cut into your family time with your little one as well. So I do appreciate the work you do with us and the UK staff, and it only leaves to say thank all the attendees for joining us this evening. Please send in your questions. Please complete the brief questionnaire form for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.